What's going on YouTube? It's Dillon James, and on today's video, I'm going to be sitting down with the host of the Sports Card Nonsense podcast on the Ringer Network, Mike Gioseffi, to talk about card shows, talk about some tips and tricks on what you should expect when you're going to these events, but also some news around the hobby, such as the Fanatics takeover and how it will affect the hobby moving forward. Mike, thank you so much for joining us on Cardbase on the YouTube channel. How are you? How's everything going on your end?
I'm 20 minutes late. That's how I am. I tell you, man, I would have blasted a guest for showing up 25 minutes late. Dillon is a professional. Just rolls right on, man. I apologize.
I just roll right on. Yeah, I mean, you know what? At the end of the day, I knew you were going to be here at some point, so you know what? Might as well just roll with it. Roll with the punches a little bit. So
inexcusable.
So
doing well.
Good. So let's kind of get into your background a little bit, because some of our viewers might not know much about you and much about your show. So kind of give us a synopsis of the history of Mike Gio in the hobby, and also with your Sports Card Nonsense podcast. How did that come to be and things of that nature?
Yeah, so just quick. I mean, I was a breaker for about 5 years. We set up a company years ago, kind of bought direct distribution to buy cases, boxes, all that stuff, and sell it. I tell you, I show up late. I got dogs barking. This is a train wreck, Dylan.
You're fine.
Sold the business, kind of was into the whole buy and sell. I got to go upstairs. I'm going to murder him.
You're good.
You guys are ruining everything on YouTube, idiots. So for about 5 years is the whole buy and sell game. And then they kind of sold the business last year at the height of COVID, or actually at the beginning of COVID, just to kind of move out of it. I was nervous about the whole commodity space. And just kind of took off from there with the podcast.
Very good. So let's get into some of these headlines first. So one of the biggest things that came out of this week, I mean, we're going to be talking about card shows and what to expect going into card shows, kind of get tips and tricks and things of that nature on your end, because you've had so much experience in these things. But let's first talk about some of the news that came into the hobby this week. There was a CNBC article that came out talking about the sports card industry, and there were two things that stuck out to me. But before I get into the two things that stuck out to me, I want to know what stuck out to you in this specific article when it comes to the sports card industry and what they kind of alluded to the future looking like for the hobby for Fanatics.
Yeah, I mean, number one was the whole just no-name sources. That was my first issue with the whole article. I don't know how you make these wild claims like, hey, they're going to come up with a secondary market. They're going to go direct to public, cut out all middlemen. They're going to do their own grading, their own reselling. So basically you're telling me they're going to do everything themselves, which they end up doing. Who's the source? Unnamed sources, people attached to. I really have no use for unnamed sources when they're breaking news like that, especially when Fanatics has not said a word about anything publicly. Luber's come out and spoken about things, hasn't said a word. So, I kind of struggle with some of these things like, hey, this is going to happen. What are we, I have no idea what's going to happen. If that does happen, you're going to see a major shift in landscape. But is there any truth to that? I think that remains to be seen.
Yeah, so the two of the big points that I saw, not unnamed sources, I think that was a big thing in this story. But the 2 points that kind of stuck out to me were the number one, the evaluation of the sports card industry by 2027. This company came in saying that it was going to be a $98.7 billion industry by 2027. So in that regard, Verified Market Research was the one who came out with that number. What do you have to say about that number? Do you see that number being attainable by the industry? Do you see it's just something, kind of like an NFT guy saying that his collection's worth $12 million right now when it was 20 million, things like that. What's your take on that?
Yeah, I mean, is it possible? Sure. Is it likely? I mean, I struggle with what is Fanatics' plan when they come in? Are they just going to start pumping out new brands? If that's the case, you're going to see a slowdown for a lot, especially if they go with their own distribution. If that's the case, no, I don't think we'll see gains like that in year 1, 2, 3. If you're telling me, though, they're going to take over existing brands, work on some sort of licensing deal, keep a lot of the same lines in place and just keep the money machine printing. And by the way, we're going to add our own SKUs and our own product. I guess that's an attainable number. I mean, they're a monster company, right? They're going to hit the market at like 20 to 30 billion in their IPO. So is it possible? Sure. I'm still just super curious about their whole game plan.
Yeah, and speaking of their game plan, they kind of went into that as well, as you alluded to in your point as well, talking about how Fanatics was going to be taking over the grading aspect of things, the marketplace, the production of cards. What's your take on this? And I mean, do you think that that's something that the hobby would improve upon, would be better because of if Fanatics decided to go that route?
No, I think I would hate that personally. Again, with the caveat, is any of that going to happen? Maybe, maybe not. I think it's horrible though to say that the same company who makes the cards is going to grade the cards and then sell the cards. It just seems like a huge conflict of interest to me. Um, and then you start leaning towards how much of a monopoly are we going to really have here. So I really hope for their sake that is not what they end up doing. You want to be creative and come up with some new brands, some different things. I'm all for it. I hope they don't try to go into every single avenue of the hobby, though.
Yeah, and speaking of distribution, you kind of hit on that as well. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
local card shops. I mean, there have been several Instagram users coming out with whether it be breakers, whether it be local card shops, kind of disturbed by this news, thinking that they might be cut out from the whole algorithm of things. But as we've seen, there are several key players in this whole Fanatics acquisition that are actually in the hobby already. They are collectors themselves. So do you think that has a glimmer of hope for the local card shops they should be looking at, saying that, you know, there are people in this hobby that are going to be involved in this? It's not going to be there's not going to be third parties coming in completely anyway to disrupt that? Or do you think there is some credence to that?
Again, I think it could go either way. I mean, it's a multi-billion-dollar company with international infrastructure. If they said off the bat, we're coming in, we're going direct to public, you know, we don't feel the need to cut card shops or breakers a break on product. We're going to release everything. I mean, I can understand the from a business sense. Your margins are huge, right? Profitable right off the bat. You're the only place to get product, and you're making it. That's a home run. That would obviously crush card shops and breakers. I think we're going to see them keep, again, totally just my guess here. I think we're going to see them keep some lines of distribution in place. Is that where they just allow, you know, direct card shops to just have direct contact with them and a sales rep? Does that mean they're going to have one or two or, you know, some of the major distributors in place, keep them all in place? So I think we'll see if I was a guessing, again, a betting man, I'd say we see some sort of a compromise because, yeah, if they just decide to go direct to public with everything, that's a major, major shift. I mean, all of a sudden, breakers' margins are gone. So why are you breaking product? Just go buy it yourself if you're a consumer.
Yeah. What do you see in this story as a silver lining, if there is one?
I'll be honest with you. I hate to do this. I just nothing really because I don't know that any of this is going to happen in the first place. You
True.
know, the one thing that was weird too. The last sentence to me, it was something along the lines of, you know, Panini's valued at 1.3 billion. They could do that, or they could go with Upper Deck, and they could go with Leaf. I just thought it was hilarious. They don't mention anything about Tops in that last line. Like, if you're talking about buying companies, that has been the one that's been the most speculated and rumored about. So the fact that they're potentially talking about it, fantastic. I would love to see some brands that we have come to know and love stick around. And if they want to mess around and do their own thing and build their own brands, that's cool too. That would be the biggest. If I heard that from a Fanatics source, that would be a huge win for me. Like, hey, we're going to keep, again, however they work out the licensing deal, we're going to keep Topps, Chrome, and Bowman. Awesome. Or hey, we're going to keep NT, Prism, Select. Fantastic. So those are the markers I'm looking for. But I just want to hear from a source that I know or from somebody that's, you know, has knowledge firsthand.
Yeah. And one other piece before we get over to the card shows. The NFL has not come into this agreement with Fanatics yet officially.
Right.
The Players Association has, the league is not yet. Do you see, what do you think is the hang up there? Do you think that there's just still negotiations happening? Do you think that they're still trying to work out something with Panini to continue with that? So it might be looking like a product like we see with Panini and baseball, where we don't have logos on these players and we just see their names on the cards, or vice versa. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, what's weird is the Players Association. I think this is correct. Isn't the Players Association for the NFL already on board with Fanatics?
I believe so. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So if that's the case, you can't use player. You can only use two players from the Players Association, and then past and unsigned. Which in football, there's not really prospects. I mean, I guess you could work in NIL. I don't know how that would make any sense for Panini. You could make product, but not of current players. Uh, you know, I can't see that. I think it's probably just, again, my guess it's just a matter of time. The NFL's working on, a bigger piece of the pie probably. I mean, the NFL's a monster now, so I would imagine that's just a foregone conclusion, and we're going to see that deal done pretty soon. The PA is already on board. I mean, the NFL's going to follow suit.
Yeah, and kind of like a strong arm situation at that point.
I
So
am I am sitting on my floor with my phone charger now. So unprepared. I
I
had to
love
jog
that.
all the way upstairs. This is horrendous. Your audience, I hope they rip me to shreds. Oh my goodness.
You're
I
doing
do.
great. You're doing great. Great insight. Anyway, that's all that matters here on our YouTube channel. So let's go to sports card shows. So I actually came back into the space during COVID, like a lot of collectors and investors, and I have yet to go to a card show. I'm actually going to one this weekend in Tampa to Collectors Con, their inaugural show there. So
Nice.
for me and for also some other collectors, investors out there that are getting more comfortable in the landscape that we're living in now, where COVID is somewhat diminishing. I mean, there are some concerns of Delta variant, but other than that, we are seeing more and more shows pop up for the hobby. What tips and tricks do you have for collectors, for investors when you're going out to these shows? Kind of give me a breakdown of what you do before, during, and after a card show to have a successful attendance at that show.
Yeah, I mean, a couple, like, I would call them just like evergreen rules that I go with. If you're going there to buy, have cash, have PayPal, have Venmo, Cash App. I try to have as many payment options as are available because a lot of guys like prefer one or the other. Cash is king, but not like it used to be. So have different payment methods available. If you're bringing things with you, most people are. Have a value in mind, have a price in mind that you're prepared to take if you're going to try to deal with somebody at the table. And be realistic. I'm never going to sell out to a dealer for 60% just because they had to pay for a table. But if I'm trying to make a deal with a dealer, I got to leave something 75, 80% of comps, I think is reasonable. And then when it comes to actually buying, the one thing I still do this every show I go to, if I'm at a random table, I find one card I know the value of, and I ask the price right off the bat. I don't care if I have any interest. If I see a Luca Prism PSA 10, how much is the card? It's like a $750 card. If they have it marked $800, okay, I know I'm at a reasonable table. But if I see that one card and they tell me it's 1,200, honestly, I don't waste a lot of time there. I'm not gonna go there and try to knock somebody down from $2,000 to $800 on a card because they are way over comp. So I think you can save a lot of time and a lot of frustration by just finding people who are reasonably priced and then spend your time there. And then, depending on your price level, some guys kind of knock the whole side hustle now of the $5 and $10 bins or the dollar boxes. Those are always the most popular boxes at the show. Like every single show, you will see people who dollar for dollar will make the most return or get the most value because they spend the time to look through those dollar boxes or those cheap boxes. So do whatever it is you like. Like I don't subscribe to this thing. Like don't waste your time with the small stuff. Chase whatever you want. Like find what you want to find. If you have to have the card too, I don't get overly crazy about comps. At the National, I bought some stuff over comps. Not crazy, but 10, 15% over because I wanted the piece. I'm not going to sit there and nickel and dime and risk losing something I want. It's in person. I get to see it. I get to make the deal. I'm not waiting for someone to ship it to me. So, be reasonable, but also find reasonable people and spend your time there, I would say.
Yeah. Speaking of the National, I'm kind of talking about the hype around the hobby. Kind of talk about that and talk about the attendance there, how it seemed like, what the expectations were going into the show. Did they meet those expectations? Did it exceed those expectations? Kind of talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, attendance was insane. I told people like Wednesday is usually a pretty calm day. Wednesday was insane. Thursday was nuts. After Thursday morning, me and Jesse did not leave the booth. We had so many people coming up. Fans of the show, fans of the podcast. We literally hung out there the whole time. Didn't walk the floor much after that. Um, it was slow to start. I think a lot of people at the show and just in the hobby in general had spent a lot of money January through March. They're upside down on their investment or the card they bought, and they didn't want to come down on price. But by the end of the weekend, people were spending money pretty freely. And people who were reasonably priced there, there's a reason guys will have 50 people around their table and there's just money being thrown at them. They're reasonably priced. So if you're a seller at one of these shows, especially the National, if you have reasonable prices, and you don't inflate it just because you're at Chicago and you paid $2,000 for a booth, you can do really, really well. But yeah, I thought there was a good vibe coming out of it. I think the market's done well overall. I mean, I think we're have kind of hit the floor of where we were at, almost back to where we were pre-COVID for most things. And now it's like it seems like systematically things are starting to go up again, which is nice, and in a more controlled fashion. It's not a 15x return like Giannis was last year, but there's steady growth across the board, which is it's been a good that was a good launching point, I think, for the market.
Do you see with sports card shows that an influx of those shows popping up around the country, do you see it as a good thing or a bad thing?
Hit and miss. I think too much of anything is a bad thing. I don't go to a ton of shows either. I try to hit a few shows regionally, and the big one's the national, but that's about it. I don't try to hit one every single weekend. So I think it's a good thing for the hobby, but I don't need one every weekend for me personally. I think you can overdo that too.
Yeah, some good advice from Mike. So, Mike, tell us a little bit about Sports Card Nonsense. What have you guys been up to on the podcast? Tell us things that you're expecting in the future, in the coming weeks for the show, kind of things for us to look out for.
Yeah, so we're sponsored, paid for. I don't know how you say it. Whatever. We're on the Ringer Podcast Network, which is massive with Simmons. He frequents the show pretty often. Bill Simmons does, so that's cool. Comes out every Monday and Thursday. Anywhere you get podcasts. Right now it's still a new company, 6 months old. We're still really just focusing on brand growth, using social media, which again can be good, can be an ally, but it's frustrating too. So trying to build out there. We just signed on with an agent who works for Octagon. They're a massive company, and we've got some things in the works already with their team. So yeah, we're pretty excited. Hopefully, we start getting some more. So I hope we start to see sports cards start to cross into other avenues, whether it be just sports, different entertainment. Doors are opening. I think that's kind of the overall picture for us. How can we get not just to be a niche thing, but how can we really just be exposed to the world? I guess.
Yeah. I mean, and speaking of the podcast too, I know this past week you were talking on the show about a certain player that you're investing in Mac Jones, the brand new quarterback for the New England Patriots. Kind of give us your mindset on that. Kind of give us why you think that Mac Jones is going to be the next star there in New England. He's going to carry that team and Bill Belichick to success.
Yeah, I mean, I like Mac. I think I'm not saying he's going to be the greatest quarterback in the world. I like that team. I think they have some talent there. They have an easy open to the schedule at least. And the fact that they cut Cam shows me they have at least quite a bit of confidence in the kid. So I just thought, hey, at half the price roughly of Trevor Lawrence, even after the spike, because I got in late, I figured, yeah, I'm in. I'll take a shot and just kind of see what he does. But that's my dream scenario. He goes in 3-0. Brady comes to town. There's this crazy, stupid comparison with him and Tom all of a sudden. And then that's my plan. That's probably when I'll be looking to sell if all things go well. Guy's probably going to break his leg next practice. I always am terrible with young quarterbacks. It's brutal.
Well, kind of with that comparison too with Mac Jones and Trevor Lawrence, do you see the same kind of thing happening with Justin Herbert and Joe Burrow from last year? Do you see Joe Burrow being a good buy for those people who want to invest in Joe Burrow right now, especially with the prices of his cards being quite a bit lower than Justin Herbert at the time?
Yeah, it's wild. So that was my big theory. Like, hey, June, July, I'll be able to buy Burrow stuff. But it started moving up so quickly before he even came back fully from the injury. I just didn't waste time. Like, I think both those guys have to perform really well to sustain their market, and I don't know that either one of them can. Like, even Herbert, as good as Herbert was last year, like, if Herbert doesn't play excellent this year and win games, his prices are going to fall. That scares me. So I'm actually higher on Tua than I am either one of those guys, to be honest with you. I think there's more upside. I think it's a much better team than either one of those guys are on. So, yeah, I'm on the Tua train.
Do you think the confidence in Tua in Miami is lower than it was last year, considering they were potentially going to be trading for Deshaun Watson?
That the one thing I've heard, and it's been fairly consistent from Miami, is that they were never going to move him. You've been our guy. So they've played that well. I mean, what they're saying behind closed doors, I don't know. But he's also coming back from the injury. He's got to have more confidence this year just physically. So that's a good thing. There was anything more than just kind of crazy rumor talk about Deshaun. So if I'm Tua, this is the team that's behind me. I'm ready to go. So I hope we see a confident, healthy Tua, and I think he'll be a winner in the league. So yeah, I think he'll do well.
So there you go. Tua is better than Justin Herbert and Joe Burrow, and
That's
Mac
right.
Jones is better than Trevor Lawrence and the other quarterbacks that are in this
and
class
Tom
this year.
Brady
And Tom Brady. Well, right, currently, I mean.
Yeah, better than Tom Brady right now. Correct. That's what I'm saying.
Right now.
That's my quote. That's the quote.
Current. I love it. Well, Mike, thank you so much for joining the show today. I'm really appreciate you coming on. I'm sure our fans and viewers out there will definitely listen to your podcast and give you guys some love there. But yeah, if you like this video, guys, make sure you like that, hit that like button, click the subscribe button, and hit the notification bell every time we post a new video. You'll be the first to know about it. Thank you once again, Mike, for joining us, and we hope to talk to you soon.
I want to come back when I'm not sitting on my floor or talking to dogs, and I'm prepared.
That'd be great.
For this.
That'd be
I'm
great.
excited.
Thanks,
Thanks man.